And then you, yeah. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Wednesday Tea and Toast. Hope you are all doing well this lovely sunny morning. Feels a bit weird to be saying that because the weather of the past, well, I don't know about you guys, it feels like the past month has just been so horrendous. So how lovely to wake up to some sunshine. So then, before we kick off, let me do a quick introduction of everyone. We've got a full house today. There's loads of us, which is fantastic. So if you haven't seen any of our tea and toast before, I'm Jasmin. I'm a conversation starter at the Yard. And you'll see me doing all the community stuff that goes on at the Yard. So the tea and toast, community circle. And actually, we've got quite a few things planned coming up now that the roadmap, fingers crossed, is going ahead and things are starting to open up a bit. So let me introduce you to everyone we've got with us this morning. So we have got Beth, who is our lovely placement student. How are you, Beth?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you, Jasmin. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. How are you feeling today? Okay?
Yeah, I'm very sunny today. The weather outside is making me feel very...
I know. Yeah, me too. I feel very sunny today. Although probably best don't look at the weather forecast because it's going to rain this afternoon. So let's just embrace all this sunshine this morning, I think. Okay, right, moving on to Zan. Zan is one of our volunteers at the Yard. So good morning, Zan.
Good morning.
How are you feeling today?
Woken up.
Yes, made it this Wednesday. Last Wednesday,
Yes.
I think you were still asleep, weren't you?
Precisely that.
So we feel very honoured for you to be here on time this week. You set an alarm, you got yourself together and you're here, which is fantastic.
Yes. The alarm didn't even go off. I just somehow managed it.
Wow. Wow. Loving that work. And then we have got Laurel, who is another one of our lovely volunteers. Good morning, Laurel.
Hey.
How are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you feeling this morning? Are you feeling sunshiny?
I'm like Zand and I just woke up, so
honestly, the life of you youngsters these days, honestly, just woken up, just rolled out of bed. You don't know how lucky you are. I'm feeling my age now. I can't remember the days when I could just do that. But we are very pleased to have you. We're pleased you've got out of bed and you're here with us this morning, Laurel. So thank you. And then last but by no means least, we are joined by the lovely Carrie this morning. Good morning, Carrie.
Hiya, hi.
How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling really good. It's really sunny. I'm soaking it up. It's great.
Yeah. So it definitely makes you feel a bit brighter of the morning, doesn't it, when the sun's shining?
Definitely, yeah.
So Carrie is going to tell us all about the work that she does and goes on at the Bradlaugh Fields and Barn. So if it's okay, Carrie, I'll hand over to you and tell us all about what you guys do.
Okay, so Bradlaugh Fields is kind of a bit of a secret, really, sometimes in Northampton. Lots of people don't know where it is. But if you go, you can get to it from lots of different ways. Morrison's on the Kettering Road or up by Kingsthorpe Community College. It's basically a massive piece of semi-natural green space in the heart of the town. And what happened with Bradlaugh Fields was in the 1990s, a group of people in the community around Bradlaugh, the golf club were going to sell off the land for housing development. And so they fought this really long and hard campaign to keep those fields free from development for the local community. Free access to it, everybody can use it, and it was just to be used by the local community. And they actually won, which is astonishing, really. I'm not sure it would be won these days, but it was won, and it was a massive and amazing campaign. So basically what it is West Northants look after the fields. Wildlife Trust look after some of it, the hills and hollows we call it, and some of the fields at the top end of Bradlaugh, they're looked after by Wildlife Trust. And then there is a barn in the middle of Bradlaugh Fields, and that is sort of a bit like a community centre, but kind of not really. It's a beautiful space, and the Friends of Bradlaugh, which is a committee which is just elected on every year out of the local community, we help and support putting things on at the barn. So we have a cafe, and we have lots of outdoor volunteering stuff, and we're all volunteers. There's no paid employment at Bradlaugh Fields or Barn at all. It's all local community based, and it's focused on including the local community and preserving and conserving the natural, semi-natural space. We have loads of wildlife up there, massive diversity of plant and animal life and bird life there. I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful place. And we're so privileged and so lucky to have it. And lots of people found it in lockdown because they started going out for walks and they found this amazing place, you know, which is really beautiful. So we have volunteering. So we have outdoor volunteering groups that do stuff on the fields. And then we have the cafe, which we try to open as much as we can. And again, staffed by volunteers. And we have some groups that run up there. We've got a forest school that's going up there at the moment, and a home ed group that sometimes uses the barn. But at the moment, we've been closed because of lockdown, obviously. But as we start to think about opening up again, we're starting to think about those things. We really love volunteers to come up, and we have lots of sort of middle-aged volunteers. I'm sure nobody will mind me saying that, but it'd be lovely to get some younger people up there and involved and thinking about it and using the space. For me, it's really important that we keep it open, free, inclusive access to everybody, that it is not about making money. It's not a business. It is kept as the people that fought for it wanted it to be, which is a semi-natural space. And it goes back to the old idea of the commons for me, which is an old idea that goes back to the English Civil War, that our land is a common land. And it is owned, it was taken and stolen from people by businesses. And for me, Bradlaugh Fields represents the commons for us in Northampton, for everybody. And we know from research, like a recent piece of research in Scotland, which showed that being in nature is as beneficial for us as antidepressants.
Wow.
So using that space for health and well-being is so important to me, and I think we just need to really make sure everybody knows about it. And volunteering and connecting, again, we want everybody to be volunteering and getting that lovely feeling that you get from working with other people for some greater good kind of thing, you know, for something that's amazing and can be enjoyed by everybody. And not owned by anybody. So yeah, really important place, I think, in Northampton. Something that we all have to be sort of guardians of, really, and protect, because a lot of hard work went into preserving it.
I think you're right, actually, where you started off and saying it's a bit of a hidden gem, because actually before you just joined us online before, I said to Zan, I said, where is Bradlaugh Fields? Because when the Bradlaugh, I always just think of the pub, you know, the Charles Bradlaugh.
Yeah.
So I've never actually heard of Bradlaugh Fields, and actually to hear that you've got all of that going on and there's a coffee shop and whatnot, sounds absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's in quite accessible reach for a lot of people, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. You can get through. So Morrison's on the Kettering Road. If you walk through the hills and hollows, which are these big up and down areas, and then you come and you can see where the barn is. Or you can come via Kingsthorpe Community College, or up by All Saints in Kingsthorpe, or by the girls' school.
Okay, yeah.
Down there as well. Yeah. And so if you wander around, there's a huge diversity of like landscape and everything there, and yeah, it's great. It's a beautiful place. So yeah, definitely try and engage with it and go there and have a look.
Well, I'm definitely going to be on my list to take my children for a walk around, because it's always nice, isn't it, to find new places, especially like you say during lockdown. We've all probably done more country walks and parks, and so to find one that you haven't yet discovered is fantastic, isn't it?
Definitely. And there's an outdoor classroom there as well for the kids. Yeah, so there's lots of stuff for kids. So yeah.
How are you guys sustainable then?
Well, we're a charity now, so we set up as a charity last year. At the end of last year, we're sustainable only on getting grants, and that's how we sustain ourselves. We make a little bit of money through the cafe, but not anything really, because it's quite cheap, and we are only at the moment able to open it on a Saturday morning because of COVID restrictions. But yeah, so that's basically through grants, and everything is volunteered. So
it's amazing that it's sort of done through volunteering. How do you find it? Do people sort of volunteers that you have? Do you find that you when people I quite like to be involved in this?
Jasmin, I'm really sorry, I can't hear very well. There's like some interference. I don't know where it's coming from.
I can't hear you very well, Ian.
Okay. Is that any better now?
Yeah. You know.
I could hear someone tapping on a keyboard, so I don't know if anyone's doing that, but if you are, perhaps put yourself on mute. It's not a problem. Sorry, Carrie. So the volunteers that you have, have they sort of been people that have come over and had a walk round and thought, oh, I'd love to get involved with this? How do you find you get your volunteers?
Yeah, definitely. They're people that have just discovered Bradlaugh for some reason. They've gone for a walk and then they email us at the office and ask to either sort of do some outdoor volunteering or cafe volunteering or whatever. And then we try and help them, to support them to do that. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Has anyone got a question they'd like to ask Carrie?
Yeah, I do. You're saying about outdoor volunteering. What kind of things would you kind of be doing with your outdoor volunteers?
So there's two main groups at the moment. One runs Tuesday morning and one's a Saturday morning, I think every fortnight. And it's whatever jobs are going on, really. So they do all sorts of things: planting wildflower meadows, sorting out the pond, planting trees, watering trees. We've got a sensory garden. A lot of volunteers do like gardening in the sensory garden area, or picking up litter. You know, it can be absolutely anything that needs doing. And and we do it in groups. So Tony, who's our outdoor lead, he kind of will sort of have an overall picture of what needs doing. And we work closely with the park ranger from West Northants, who's Vicky Maloney as well. We work closely with her, so she'll have lots of projects on the go, and we'll be wanting us to help and support with those. And also Nicola Clark from Ida Verdi, who are a group who work with West Northants, and she also has ideas as well. So we just all work together collaboratively, really, to try and help and support whatever needs to be done.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
That's really great. Really great.
Yeah, it does. Zan or Laurel, have you got anything you'd like to ask Carrie?
Although I haven't got any questions, I do have quite a few like little good bits to say about Bradlaugh Fields, because growing up, Bradlaugh Fields was always like a great go-to place when we were on the bike rides, like when I was first learning to ride my bikes, because going up to it, it's all flat and uphill and you're working up to it, and then it has this like really bumpy, great track for it. So I've always been going up there since I've been like 2 or 3, even on like the back of my mum and dad's bike. So it's always been a great place. And then as I got older and there was some like my mum's dance shows, they also held some dance events at the hall itself, which were quite good to go to. I saw some massive dogs, which was quite cool. and then also later on doing the home ed stuff. I've been to a few home ed events at Bradlaugh and just think it's a really great community area.
Yeah,
amazing.
Absolutely. That's brilliant, isn't it? There's just those little points in your life where it's been really an important place for you, and that connection throughout your life, the narrative, I suppose, of that and how that works for you. Because I've also had, points of connection with Bradlaugh Fields when my kids were little, and then doing groups up there, and then coming back to it now again. So it's a funny place. It kind of, yeah.
Oh, brilliant. So George has just said in the comments, nature is so important to our mental health. I love our parks, fields and country parks, etc. in Northamptonshire. Absolutely, 100%. George has also said, what is the best way of getting in touch with you, Carrie?
So there's a Bradlaugh Fields and Barn community Facebook. So you can go on there and post something or just message. Or we have an email, which is office@bradlaugh.org. I can send it to.
I'm just gonna pop it in the comments now. So office@bradlaugh.org.
Yeah, so that's our email, or the Facebook pages, and we've got an Instagram, I think, as well. Both our Bradlaugh Fields and Barn community. But yeah, it's totally good, and we're really kind of looking. So we've got some people on the committee at the moment who are involved professionally in well-being and mental health. And we're really hoping to really develop that side of Bradlaugh for people and really kind of promote that and hopefully, because we know, especially from the lockdown, nature has been so important for us to be able to keep sane.
A little bit of sanity, hasn't it been for all of us? Absolutely. So the career put my teeth in, Jasmin. The curator educator has said there are also lots of opportunities for outdoor learning for young people as well. Is that still the case?
I think that's definitely something we want to develop. obviously we've been shut for about a year because we're all volunteers. It's been very difficult to open. So as we're starting to open now again, and starting to get all the assessments in place. So I think that's definitely something that we will be looking at, developing those outdoor learning opportunities for people. We have got Forest School up there at the moment, and they use the outdoor classroom, and the home ed group is hopefully coming back as well. So yeah.
Brilliant. And then we've also, as if memory serves, near the barn is a secret garden type area.
There's lots of secret garden type areas at the barn and in the fields. But yes, there's a sensory garden, which is like this amazing kind of sensory place for young people and for adults there. There's also lots of little gated bits where have secret places as well. And someone recently saw a tree. They took a photograph of a tree right by the barn, which looks like a gigantic woman. It's like the spirit of Bradlaugh Fields protecting the fields.
That.
So yeah,
I mean, and you can't beat places like with little secret garden. You know, I've got a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I mean that just sounds amazing for them, because a country walk sometimes can become a bit boring for them, can't it?
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
So having those little bits for them to sort of discover, and you know, it sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So we've just had another comment here saying, "Brilliant, thank you. I was just wondering, what exactly is a forest school?"
So a forest school has an idea of learning which is different from, I suppose, being in a classroom and sitting and writing notes and things like that. So forest school is about experiencing, learning, experiencing. Children learn through experiencing. And also I think there's a sensory element to forest school as well, that we should be outside, we should be experiencing and learning with all our senses, not just the visual sense where we might be reading and writing, but actually to self-regulate, especially as children, which is a means regulating our emotions. We need to use all of our emotions, all of our senses, in order to keep ourselves stable. And so forest school has a view which is much more holistic about how we and how children learn outside. So forest learning is like really, really important. It's just an amazing thing that's been going on. And I know that the forest school, somebody called Beth runs it at Bradlaugh Fields, and it's been booked out. It's just absolutely so popular, especially after COVID, because we've learned the dangers of relying on staying inside all the time. We can't always do it, and nor should we do it.
Oh, absolutely. So the curator educator said, I'd love to have a chat with yourself around helping support and deliver some creative, well-being, nature-based sessions, if that is something of interest.
That would definitely be of interest to us. Yeah, we absolutely want to develop that. So if you either message me on Facebook or send an email to the office, and we'll have a chat. Definitely.
Fantastic. It's linking up all the wonderful people we've got in the
definitely.
I think, you know, this is a lot of the part of our tea and toast is that we feel when we ask different organisations and whatnot to come on with us, because we feel there's so many amazing things that go on in Northampton and so many great organisations, but for some, very few people know about them. And I know that you obviously know about Community Courtyard and the Yard, but we really want to work collaboratively with as many people as we can, because you know, we don't want to be in competition with people, because we've all got our different strengths and skills. But what we want to be able to do is know what's going on in Northampton, and we're not the experts in it, but be able to signpost our people to the experts and to the right organisation for them. And that's why I think, and we just love, like, you know, having people like yourself come on, Carrie, is because, you know, I'm pretty sure that there will be people watching this morning, myself included, who now I can't wait to get up to Bradlaugh Fields at the weekend and find another walk. But, you know, it's things like that, isn't it?
Definitely. And I think also for us, you know, collaborating with you guys is really important, because you know, as tends to be, we have lots of middle-aged people who are doing work with us, but it would be really great to have younger people coming in and doing some volunteering or just being around and having that voice represented in the community at Bradlaugh. Really important.
And I think sometimes that can be sometimes overlooked and forgotten about, but the younger person's voice is as valid as
absolutely.
And obviously at the Yard, you know, Beth does some work with, so we've got a girls group at the Yard, and you know, a lot of youth stuff going on. So there may well be some people within that would really benefit from coming up to see you guys and perhaps doing a bit of volunteering, because we've spoke about volunteering on these Tea and Toast a few times, but we just feel it's such a valuable thing to do. And if you're at a place or sort of a bit of a crossroads in your life and you're not sure where to go, having that bit of volunteering experience and on your CV is really valuable, isn't it? Really valuable.
Definitely for young people, it really is valuable, and it helps you to develop skills and develop interpersonal skills in a really safe way, manageable way, which isn't overwhelming like going into a job, which can be just so overwhelming. Actually, you can build up really slowly if it's a really nurturing volunteering group, which is really important. And anything actually that isn't monetized, that isn't commodified, where you're not selling your labor for a wage and having to do that stuff, anything that you're doing which is just out of love is always wonderful. So volunteering is a great thing in itself as well, I think.
And that's the same sort of ethos we have at the Yard, because obviously we've got Laurel and Zan this morning with us and they're volunteers with us, but we always value that our volunteers are just as important within our team as the paid staff. Sometimes maybe even more so, because they're choosing to be there out of their own time. So I just think it's really important that, sometimes people can feel, well, I'm only a volunteer, but actually a volunteer is absolutely an amazing thing to do and to be. So it's not something to be sort of poo-pooed, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. I've got a full-time job, but I also volunteer as well, because I just think that volunteering in itself is a really important and wonderful thing to do, and really beneficial for you as a person and for your community. So I'm very much into volunteering.
It's really rewarding, isn't it? Because given that bit of time, your own time, and because you choose to do it for something that you feel sort of passionate about, or it's very rewarding. Absolutely. The creator educator said there's a beautiful poetry book called The Lost Word that links so well with the open space at Bradlaugh.
Yeah, definitely. I think I know that poetry book. So yes, I know exactly. Yeah, it absolutely. And we really want to do more of that stuff. I think within Bradlaugh, have more poetry groups, maybe poetry readings outside, doing lots of things as things open up would be amazing.
And hopefully, I touched on just a little bit earlier, hopefully now we are coming through to the other side of this pandemic and things opening up, and it's been a long old slog, hasn't it, for everyone, and it's affected every sort of business and person. None of us are going to come out of this pandemic unscathed in some way. It's affected all of us, and something which we touched on briefly, Carrie, you mentioned, and something that we really wanted to speak about this morning as well, is mental health. Now I think there's been such a detriment to mental health throughout this pandemic, and one that it's going to take a while to recover from, whether that be our young children, the secondary school students, the university students, everyone, regardless of what stage in life you're at, has been affected by this pandemic. And I think mental health is always been important, but I feel like at the moment so important, because there's a lot of people struggling. I don't know. What do you think, Beth?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. I think especially with what's happened on Monday. So obviously on Monday our restrictions were eased even more, so that you could start going inside places, eating and drinking inside. I think that will make a lot of people feel very anxious and uncomfortable. And I think it's good that, I know where I work, because I work in a pub, that we are still having that outside space open, so that if people aren't quite ready to come back inside, they can still be outside.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to play this little video. Do I just add it to stream, Beth, and then? Yeah,
and then
it's just a real short little video, but I think it's quite nice just to touch on what we're talking about this morning.
The UN policy briefing on mental health provides essential recommendations that urgently need to be implemented. That's why, as part of the Speak Your Mind campaign, we have joined together with leaders from across the world to release an open letter. Together, we are calling on all world leaders to protect and scale mental health support within COVID-19 responses.
If I'm not psychologically well, I won't be able to take care of my patient.
We have been seeing the impact of COVID, a rise in anxiety. The quarantines have caused a rise in domestic violence and sexual abuse.
With schools closed and sheltering in place, we have seen a significant increase in children calling helplines.
The mental health response must be more robust, holistic, long-term, and become a routine part of general global humanitarian disaster response.
Yeah. And I think that just sort of hits the nail on the head with, you know, we're going to be fighting a real big battle after this pandemic with mental health. Zan, how are you feeling regarding, you know, do you feel like mental health throughout the pandemic, you know, oh sorry, I just got a bit of feedback then here. Have you got your...
Yeah, my mic's on. I was just turning it back on. That's probably where you got the feedback. So yeah, I think throughout the pandemic, I've definitely had my ups and downs due to various things. Although I don't think they've necessarily been caused by the pandemic scenario, that definitely hasn't helped, and I've definitely seen it have a lot of effects on people around me, who, like, very sociable people who would always spend lots of their time out of the house, being trapped indoors, and then not wanting to go back out.
Yeah.
And it completely changes people.
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, I've mentioned this before on one of these Tea and Toast, but my mum, my mum has COPD, and so right back last sort of March, she had to shield, and she shielded for a very long time. Almost went a bit stir crazy, I think. And then the world started to open up a little bit, but she was then scared to go to like the supermarket, because in that time when she'd stayed at home, you know, when you had to queue outside, there's a traffic light system. She was so anxious about not doing the right thing or being too close to people. And she'd never been that sort of person. She'd always been a person out and about. And I think, yeah, Sam, what you just said, it's changing people, and it has changed people. And it's going to take a while for people to sort of, I use the word get back to normal. What is the new normal? No.
It will never go back to how it was.
It would go back.
With the more people trying to transition what they can do into the online world, a lot of people are going to be like, I don't want to go back into the office if I can do it in a room from my home.
Yeah.
And there'll be loads of things changing in our society that will never go back.
Definitely. I mean, Laurel, you yourself, you've been stuck at home a long time. I mean, you've been getting out a bit more recently, haven't you? But you spent a lot of time during the pandemic at home, and it was hard going for you, wasn't it?
Yeah. Like, I'm used to being quite inside anyway. Quite a bit of a gamer. But even so, then you can't even go out if you want to. It's just really annoying. And the really annoying thing until yesterday, which I managed to do yesterday, I was really happy about, was just going around to mates' houses and gaming or talking to them.
Yeah.
So that one.
So that's worked out well now. Now we're allowed to go inside people's houses. Now you can sort of have that bit of social interaction with some of your friends. And like you say, you're a gamer, so you need to be inside to be able to do that, don't you, really?
Yeah.
But, you know, it's great that things have opened up to that extent. And, you know, there is a little bit of normality resumes. I used to have to wear a mask on the school drop-off and pick-up for the kids at school. And then we got an email on Monday morning saying, you don't have to wear masks anymore. And it was really funny, actually, because I know a lot of people who I've spoken to have moaned about it and, you know, not comfortable with it. We've all done it. And then when we were dropping the children off on Monday morning, I heard quite a few parents saying, oh, I don't feel quite as protected now. I don't feel quite as safe now. And it's funny, isn't it? Because we've now gone for such a long time knowing that we're a bit more protected with our masks on. And now people are starting to feel a bit like, oh, and I know there are some parents still wearing their masks. I don't know, Carrie, what do you think? I mean, you saying to us before, you're a social prescriber, so you work with mental health and that as well, don't you?
Yeah, so I think it like, I just hear what all of you are saying, really. I think it is really, really difficult. I think what lockdown has done is amplified things that probably were already there. So it probably hasn't created stuff, but it's made it worse. So anything that's worse, but also what it's done is it's created opportunity for thought, for thinking. And what we know is that thinking that's not directed, like rumination, we think of it, is really bad for mental health, because we end up thinking about things in the future that we can't possibly know, but we catastrophize and go, oh my God, it's going to be terrible. We're definitely going to die in a ditch. Or we dwell on the past and things that have happened in the past that we can't really change, but we kind of get into that low mood stuff. So anxiety and low mood happen in those thoughts for the future and for the past. So the more we can direct our thoughts by doing something, by distracting ourselves, by going out and connecting with others, or going into nature, or volunteering, or doing a job, all of those things help us to sort of limit the amount of undirected thoughts and mental health. But I think the problem is that all of those thoughts have built up now over a year, and people are really struggling with an idea of going back to normal. I'm struggling with it as well. I don't, you know, I'm a human being as well, and I think about Boris Johnson saying we're going to open up on the 21st of June and there'll be no restrictions. I just think, oh my God, is that really going to be okay? I don't know. I feel unsure about that at the moment. So I have my own anxieties as well.
My 10-year-old son, we were sitting watching the news, and he said to me yesterday morning, he's like, Mum, what do you think then? Should we open up on the 21st of June? Are you pro or are you against? And I sort of sat there and I was like, I don't know. I said, I don't feel 100% comfortable with it. And I'm not saying I want to live a life of restrictions either. However, I think with this Indian variant being quite prevalent now, and the thought of, I guess, people just absolutely going bonkers from the 21st of June onwards, I have concerns, I have to say. And like you said, Carrie, it's a worry, isn't it?
I think so. And I think for young people, they haven't been vaccinated yet. So it's all very well to say we're just going to let everyone do what they want. But there's a whole bunch of people who've not been vaccinated. And I know that's because there's a low risk for young people, but you're still going to get poorly. And that we still don't really know lots about long COVID and what's going to happen with that. So it's kind of like, oh God, I don't know. Yeah. Feels very weird.
Yeah, Laurel, did you want to say something?
Yeah. I'm a bit better than most about COVID. Bit background story, quick. I for biosciences at university, university. So I know quite a bit of. I read medical papers for my own interest. So I read lots of COVID papers. So I'm a bit more reassured than most people say about it. But most people are.
That's good, thank you.
Yeah,
we need
definitely.
that. We need proper information, people who understand and know about it.
Thank you. On Laurel, if we're talking about something and it comes into any sort of medical, she'll tell us exactly, well, no, I've read a paper on this, and actually it's fantastic to have someone who actually knows what they're talking about, you know? We need more of these sort of people.
Yes.
How do you guys all feel about the vaccine? I know you're like Beth, Dan and Laurel, you're all a bit younger. I've had my first vaccine. Carrie, have you been vaccinated?
Yeah, had both of them.
Have both. Okay, so I'm just wondering, how are you guys? Well, but let's start with you, Laurel, because you know your medical stuff. When it comes to you being ready and allowed to go for it, are you going to have the vaccine?
Yeah. Give it to me now, and get me stuck.
Yeah, good. What about yourself, Sam? Can't hear you.
I think the vaccine could be good, but I don't think they're putting it out at the right time in the height of the pandemic, because when a flu can see where you've had a flu jab or whatever, it can change and adapt for the next person who hasn't got it, or who has got it, making that flu jab useless. So having this vaccine put out on the height of the pandemic, when there's loads of people who have COVID, especially in places like India where they've got the new variant, because what it does is it sees the vaccine, changes itself, which is where it's mutating, and then trying to work around it. So I don't think vaccinating everyone right in the middle of it's a good idea. But
so what do you think they should have held off vaccinating them? What do you think they should have
done? Personally, I think they should have kept everyone in a much better isolation. That you can obviously see the UK didn't do a very good job of that to begin with, let alone places like America. I think they should have taken the proper precautions to begin with and stopped faffing about, and then later on when it was at a minimum, or like it almost eradicated sort of level, then you start vaccinating everyone to prepare for anything in future, because then wouldn't have seen it.
Carrie?
Yeah, there is that movement, isn't there, for zero COVID, supported by quite a lot of scientists that say we should have really locked everything down, kept it at zero, and then like Zan says.
Beth, what are your feelings on it? Have you haven't been vaccinated yet?
No, I haven't, not yet. I honestly don't know. I'm in two minds about it.
Yeah, I mean, and do you know what? You're not the only one. I've spoke to so many different people. I mean, I think at the minute it's a real topic of conversation. Have you been vaccinated? Have you been jabbed? Are you going on holiday? That sort of thing. And I've spoken to so many people who are completely, yes, give me that jab, I want it. I spoke to people who are really undecided, and I've spoke to people who are really against it. I guess that is going to happen. You're going to get all different thoughts on it. I mean, I must admit, I wanted mine done because I want to go on holiday, and I know that sounds really.
I think that's what it is. I think that's what a lot of the swaying thing for people my age is if they say, oh, actually, you don't need it to go on holiday, then I think a lot of people will be like, no, I don't need to then. I think that'll be that
bit younger, and although you can still catch, even if we've been vaccinated, we can still catch it, can't we? We're just not going to get really, really poorly.
But you can't get poorly from it, so that's the better thing.
Well, you can still get a little bit poorly, can't you? But you won't end up in hospital. So yeah, you're not going to be seriously ill in hospital. So I guess for a lot of the younger population, maybe if it comes out and it says, well, you don't need it to go on holiday, you may think to yourself, well, I'm not going to die from it. I'm not going to be seriously ill from it. So perhaps I'll just take my see how it goes and take a chance. George has just said, let's just put this up here. I can't wait. Give me whatever is available. Yeah, this is it. Well, that's it. We all have different opinions and views, and it will just be interesting. I mean, I heard yesterday, how true this is, I don't know, but I heard yesterday that if you are going to Europe by sort of summer holidays time, if you're going to Europe and you've had your 2 vaccinations, you've then got your COVID passport, so you won't have to isolate and you won't have to do the tests. Because the thing is with the holidays now, have you seen how much it's going to cost in addition to your holiday to have the test before you go? It's going to cost an absolute fortune. They're so expensive, aren't they? I mean, I don't know if there's a plan for them to be made sort of slightly cheaper, but it's sort of really, I mean, some people won't be able to afford to go because that on top of the holiday price itself is just going to be unreachable for some people. But talking about holidays, what are your guys' opinions? Because it's all mixed in the news at the minute, isn't it? They're saying, right, we've got a red list, we've got an amber list, we've got a green list, so you can go. But then ministers are saying you should not be travelling anywhere this year. So I'm wondering, what do you think? Is it safe for us to travel, or are we being selfish? What do you think, Laurel?
I'm gonna be really. I'm probably, most people won't like this. I think we should do this year. Go on holiday in the UK somewhere, but just don't go out of the UK, because then you're more likely to get something. Anything. You could get an unrelated disease from COVID. You could get anything. It's completely different.
And also, I think. Yeah, absolutely. I don't disagree with you. I think that a concern is the airports. Now, you could be flying in from a green place and stood in your queue to go through passport control and whatnot. But then another flight has come in from a red area, and they could literally be this far away in a separate queue. And I know that's what a lot of people's arguments for are. Actually, is this safe? Are we opening ourselves up for bringing more variants into the country? Or I don't know, Zam, what do you think? Should we be going abroad this year?
I don't think we should be going abroad yet, as there's still too many cases in places like Europe, for example, as well. There's a few about, and having such connected countries, trying to travel when we're already separated, it's not a good time, especially with everything going on in India.
Yeah, I agree. Carrie, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I think there's two. I think I wouldn't go abroad personally this year, but then I wouldn't fly because of climate change and airplanes anyway. So I don't do that stuff. So I think, I'm quite pleased that the planes are on the ground, because I think that gives the planet a bit of a break. Thanks. But I don't think. Because I think when you go abroad, things aren't going to be open in the same way anyway. So actually the experience of being what people want from their holidays will probably not be there in terms.
It's going to be a holiday like how we knew it a couple of years ago, is it?
No. So I think just get your tent and go camping.
Yeah,
At Glastonbury,
yeah.
you'll be fine. You'll have a good time.
Me, I need a toilet and a shower. I can't be doing with all of that. But if there's a nice little B&B nearby, I'm in.
Love a bit of glamping.
Yeah, go camping.
Camping, yeah. I think that's the way forward. Beth, what do you think?
It's hard though. I think because obviously Laura was saying about encouraging people to go away in England, but I know a lot of I heard, I think it was on the radio or somewhere, the prices of English holiday homes are absolutely skyrocketing, and
Yes.
it's like that's not the point. We're trying not to encourage people to get 60 quid flights to Amsterdam. No.
This is it. So a friend of mine has booked, so they're going to a Haven holidays. So it's a campsite, you know, it's nice. They've got a caravan for 4 nights, Monday to Friday, and it's costing them £2,000. Now that, and the prices of, you know, and they booked this, I think, in about February. They sort of made the call thinking, we're probably not going to be able to go abroad. Let's book something. So we've got something. And I just think that is absolutely bonkers amount of money. Like, first of all, a lot of people can't afford that. B, £2,000 for 4 nights in a caravan. I think it's unfair. I mean, I do understand that a lot of the holiday companies have, you know, lost a lot of money throughout this pandemic. I understand that, but putting the prices up to that extent, I think it's just unfair because it's making, again, even a UK holiday unreachable for a lot of people.
I think it's totally unfair, but also it's making it unreachable for a certain group of people, and that's people who don't have a lot of money. And people who have a lot of money, they might have a second home and they have advantage of that. They go down to Cornwall every flipping weekend. You know, they don't get impacted, and it's always poorer people who get impacted from the effects of this virus, and that's just not okay. It's not okay at all. I think we should all get our tents, go and trespass on private land and camp there.
Absolutely. I mean, Matt Hancock goes on and on about how he's going to Devon or somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, let's go and find where he's going, and you know, we'll go and
go and camp in the garden, Matt Hancock's garden. That's what we do.
Exactly. So Georgia said, I'm only holidaying in England this year in a self-contained place, so there's no mixing with other people. Yeah, I think a lot of people are doing exactly the same, to be honest, Georgia. You know, I guess things are changing, aren't they? Rapidly, you know, from one week to the next. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer with regards to going abroad. And I think it's down to an individual. You've got to do what's right for you and your family and what's within your, you know, budget and everything. So, yeah, there's no right or wrong. So just moving on from that, Laurel, what did you want to tell us about this morning, which links in quite well to what we're talking about at the minute?
I was reading Twitter last night while scrolling down, and I saw a tweet from the NHS charity called NHS Million, which is a charity that serves NHS staff, and they posted that an NHS nurse that had cared for Boris Johnson over the COVID period when he got COVID had left the NHS because she thought she had lack of supporting from the government, which is absolutely awful, and I think it went a bit viral after that.
Wow, what does everyone think about that? I just think, doesn't that, it pretty much says it all. The nurse who looked after Boris Johnson when he was in hospital with COVID has quit her job as a nurse. Sam, what do you think about that?
I think there's a lot to be said because I've had a lot of experience with like different stuff in the NHS in my past because I had a lot of involvement with a wheelchair basketball team, and I've always seen so many staff be treated like trash. Like too many stories I've heard of nurses quitting and like too much stress in their job, not getting paid enough. Even the cleaners having a stressful day, and they're not even dealing with the patients, whether it be from how they're underpaid or abused by their higher ups, or even just shouted at by patients who are impatient, quite ironically. It's an absolute tragedy that we can have this amazing health service and free healthcare, but the people who are doing the actual work to provide us this are being treated in that way.
Absolutely. Carrie, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely, wholeheartedly agree with that. I mean, the nurses that I work with, they're just absolutely amazing. They work so unbelievably hard, and throughout the pandemic, they've just been coming in, doing their work, still doing face-to-face stuff. It's been really anxiety provoking for them, really difficult. And then the news around private contracts around the COVID vaccine going to friends of people in government, and millions of pounds being taken by these people, and then nurses not given a proper pay rise at the end of it all, it's just unacceptable, absolutely unacceptable. So I totally get why this nurse has resigned. I mean, it's awful.
It's Laurel.
And I was reading a BMJ paper a bit ago saying that most staff in the NHS will need some type of mental health support, like including PTSD support. So, what's the government going to do? Hopefully,
says a lot. That really says a lot. I mean, I think the biggest kick in the teeth to our NHS staff was the lack of pay rise for them, and I feel like, especially coming out at the end, well, we're not at the end yet, but you know, when that pay rise was spoken about, and we were sort of coming just a year during the hardest pandemic, and like you said, Carrie, they have worked tirelessly, at times put their own lives at risk when there wasn't correct PPE, when they didn't have everything they needed. They still went into work. And to then give them that kick in the teeth to say that they didn't deserve the pay rise, that they, you know, that to me, if I had been an NHS worker, I'd have been, no, done. This, you know. Or what do you think, Beth?
I think it's awful, and I think it's not only awful for the woman who was helping Boris, but for the hundreds of thousands of others who were in the same thing. And I think they need just as much recognition as the woman that was helping Boris.
Obviously, her story's been highlighted because she was the nurse who helped Boris. But like you say, there's hundreds and thousands of these other nurses and doctors and that in similar positions. And it just makes me feel like, what blooming world are we living in when we don't think our nurses deserve a pay rise? I mean, our nurses in England didn't even get that little bonus pay that some of the others did in Scotland and Wales, did they?
It just shows the value, doesn't it? You know, it's all lip service, the value that the government and people like that give to nurses. You know, they were happy to go and clap on the doorstep, but actually when it comes down to money, then they'll keep that for themselves. And it's awful. It's very, very sad.
It's really sad. Boris is probably too busy out choosing his new wallpaper or something, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, sorry, Laurel. What did you want to say?
But yeah, I was just gonna go. Like the NHS staff, like some nurses I've read that are like trying to use food banks just to survive. Like, when does a nurses need to use food banks? I haven't heard of other nurses, just in the UK. Nurses need to use food banks just to keep going, just to get food, because they ain't getting paid enough. It's just ridiculous. And I think this clapping, the reason I didn't clap for the NHS is it's not to solve anything. Was the reason I didn't clap. It's just the government that as the public are doing. But I think nurses, the Royal College of Nurses, I think they made something soon. So, which is the professional body nurses and midwives. I think they're getting pretty annoyed with the government not doing anything.
Well, that's terrible. The fact that, you know, a nurse is having to go to a food bank to be able to eat. But also, I mean, it's something else that we've spoken about before in here, is the prices they have to pay to park to go to work. It's obscene. God. It's obscene. Yeah. There's something really, really wrong in our system that our NHS
and it's not just staff, it's also relatives have to pay as well. And it's just like, you have to pay to go and see somebody in a hospital.
I've had too many problems before now with friends in basketball teams where they've had huge issues and we don't even know if they're going to make it, but then we're panicking in the car park because we can't find a few £1 coins and they could be in their last moments.
It's terrible, and that should just never happen, should it?
No.
It is really, really terrible, and it's, like I said, it does make me feel like there's something so wrong with our system. It's not good. Anyway, we've got a few minutes left, so moving on, going off onto a slightly different subject. Beth, what was it that you saw on the local news
I was looking on the Chronicle and Echo yesterday, and a cafe in Northampton called, I've completely forgotten what it was called now, Matchbox Cafe in Northampton yesterday were doing a pay what you feel. So they were letting you have anything off the menu, and then you had to donate an amount to a charity in Northampton called The Lowdown. So The Lowdown do a lot with mental health and the LGBTQ plus community, which I thought was really great.
Yeah, I love the idea of that. Is it something, I don't know if you know, is it something they plan on doing sort of, I don't know, or was it just a one-off? Or
I'm not sure. This was the first time that the owner had done it, so I think it would be good to do it again. I think more places should do a similar.
Maybe it might sort of give other sort of places the idea that it's a great thing to do. I think that's lovely, that, isn't it? And it's a bit of heartwarming that there's some good people out there, and we're speaking about all the bad things and whatnot, but there are some good souls out there. And also how fantastic for some people who perhaps can't afford to go and buy that breakfast, or for one day they could go in and, you know, pay what they can afford and get themselves perhaps a hot meal and a hot drink. So yeah. I really like that. I think that's lovely.
I do think that is a really important point, Jasmin, that through the pandemic, in terms of mental health and everything else, been some amazing initiatives by people to sort of bring people together and support each other in sort of mutual aid type experiences, and that has been fantastic. And I see that cafe doing a similar kind of thing, really. And that's just wonderful, because actually when it comes down to it, people really want to help each other, and we still have that, you know, drive and that belief, and we do value the right things. It's just that we operate in a world that often people at the top don't. But, you know, the bottom line is that people really have helped each other in an amazing way through this last year, which is amazing.
I think that's probably one of the pluses that we can take from this pandemic, is it has brought out some absolutely great deeds in people. And like you say, there are those sort of people, you know, things going on, but it tends to get lost in the world. Before the pandemic, it all got a bit lost, and our headspaces are all different. And what this pandemic has made us all do is take a step back and reevaluate what's important, hasn't it?
Yeah.
But I would definitely say, you know, and I say this all the time, sometimes it's hard to draw any positives from the past year and a bit, but I do honestly think that is one of them. And it's great to see, and hopefully, and, you know, especially in your local community, it's great to see those things going on, and knowing that there are those sort of kind souls out there. It's heartwarming for sure. All right then, I think that sort of brings us to the end of our discussion this morning. I really enjoyed that, guys. Thank you so much, Carrie, for coming on and joining us. We really, really enjoyed that. And I obviously, I know you've got a full-time job and whatnot, but at the yard, our doors are opening in June. So our tea and toast, which have all been virtual, are moving over to every morning, Tuesday to Friday. Our doors are open from 10:30 till 12, where people can come in, have a chat with us, get a cup of tea, have a slice of toast. We're going to have a bit of a breakfast club coming on. But if you're ever around and have a spare few hours, we'd love you to come down and perhaps speak to some of our people, and perhaps, you know, we might be able to link up some people to do some volunteering, and come and see us down at the yard and have a cuppa face to face with us.
Sounds amazing. I look forward to that. Lovely. Yeah. Black coffee, please, no sugar.
Okay, right. Written down. Perfect. Yeah, no, it'll be great. That's the only thing, you know, with all these things on StreamYard and Zoom and whatnot, it'll just be nice to actually see people face to face again, won't it? And make those connections in the real world. Right, so thank you, Beth, Sam, Laurel. Great chat this morning. Absolutely loved it. Have a good rest of the day, everybody. We've got some crafternoon going on this afternoon, and tomorrow we'll be back with tea and toast. And tomorrow we've got some of our oldies coming back. We've got Lauren and Pell, and we're going to talk all about how university students have struggled during this pandemic and how they've sort of been a bit lost in the whole system. So I think that'll be another interesting conversation tomorrow. But have a good rest of the day, everybody, and we'll see you all very soon. Bye.
stay as a